Hello everyone, this is REB getting y'all back up to date with the state legislative session. Thanks for your patience as I battled off a nasty cold and a broken phone over the past few weeks. So, we are officially on the other side of crossover day. This is a critical deadline in the General Assembly when a bill must pass out of at least one chamber to remain active for the rest of the legislative session. Remember, we have a part-time state legislature, and the 2019 session ends on April 2nd. A few concerning items are now dead, for this year at least. This includes bills in both the House and the Senate from the bail bonds industry that would have ended the bail reform practices cities like Atlanta had begun implementing. Representative Jesse Petra's bill requiring the Department of Corrections to publish data on the number of undocumented people in their custody with ICE detainers, including the crime or crimes they are in custody for, and a couple of other anti-immigrant measures relating to driver's licenses. The other item that did not survive crossover day is RFRA, the so-called religious freedom bills the religious right keep proposing. Now, these items can be revived by being added as an amendment onto a bill that deals with the same code section and did survive crossover day. This is happening with at least one controversial measure, a school voucher bill. So for the next month, expect advocacy groups to be on the lookout for these measures getting revived in committee or on the floor. The hate crimes bill passed on crossover day by a vote of 96 to 64, with 18 members not voting. During the floor debate for this bill, Representative Sherry Gilligan opposed the measure. She spoke extensively about the, quote, hate crimes industry, if that gives you any idea about the depth of her opposition. Immediately after this bill was heard, HB 481, the total abortion ban, also went to the floor for a vote. After almost an hour and a half of debate, the bill passed by just 3 votes. Here's one take on all of this. Speaker David Ralston said earlier this year he did not see the need for additional abortion legislation, as Georgia is a very pro-life state in his opinion. He has since gone on to promote the moderation of the Republican Party in Georgia in response to losing about a dozen seats this past election and a fear of losing more. Then, some of the most staunchly conservative members of the House Republican caucus call for his resignation over claims of ethics violation and abuses of his power as Speaker. Fast forward to crossover day. Ralston comes out in support of this anti-abortion bill going to the floor for a vote over the dinner break, and the measure is added to their agenda at 7:30 p.m. on crossover day. The vote happens just before 11 p.m. and the House adjourns by 11:15. I don't get to overhear nearly as many interesting conversations as when folks mistook me for a college intern. But even without all the dots being connected, it seems clear that there is some acerbic internal fighting among the House GOP caucus over how much attention should be given to what are deemed controversial issues. And the Speaker is currently in a weakened position to bend his party to his will. Meanwhile, folks like Representative Trey Kelly are rising to leadership positions and have no qualms about taking up the most divisive issues. Regardless of exactly how this happened, this abortion ban has now passed out of the House and moves to the much more conservative Senate. The governor has already stated he will support the measure. One of Representative Ed Setzler's talking points, he's the main sponsor of the legislation, is that states can have more expansive rights than the federal standards. He cited as an example Massachusetts allowing same-sex couples to get married when the federal government did not extend that right to gay couples. As you may recall, Roe v. Wade is based on 2 primary rights being balanced against each other. One is the right to privacy under the 14th Amendment that allows women to access abortion up until viability. The other right is a compelling state interest in protecting the potential life of a viable fetus. Anti-choice groups are testing out different arguments ahead of forcing this issue before a U.S. Supreme Court that is strongly weighted in their favor. Other 6-week bans have been shot down, but that's been based on the Whole Women v. Hellerstedt case that came out of Texas. States cannot place undue burdens on people seeking abortions, like requiring medically unnecessary ultrasounds or requiring providers to have admitting privileges at nearby hospitals. The question this bill in Georgia and these talking points from Representative Setzler more narrowly get at is, can states argue they have a more expansive right to protecting life, or in this case, a potentially viable fetus's future life, than current law allows? This sort of argument may not lead to abortion becoming outlawed, but it may be a path to getting the issue returned to states to decide. And, as Representative Renita Shannon pointed out on the House floor last Thursday, making abortion illegal doesn't make it go away. It just means that people with access to resources can travel to places where it is still possible to get safe, legal abortions, and people without resources, who tend to be low-income folks and people of color, will resort to the sorts of self-induced abortions and unregulated illegal abortions that led to high maternal mortality rates before the Roe v. Wade decision. Senator Renee Unterman, whose pro-life credentials were called into question earlier this year over her support of the Equal Rights Amendment, has had this bill assigned to her committee, the Science and Technology Committee. As you may recall from earlier this year, she was stripped of her chairmanship of the much more influential Senate Health and Human Services Committee. This bill is set to have a hearing in her committee, Science and Technology, on Thursday. The other big development right now include the omnibus voting bill, HB 316. In addition to a bunch of election law reforms, this bill calls for the state to invest $150 million in controversial ballot marking devices, plus allows the Secretary of State to join a group called ERIC and maintain that any activities he does as part of ERIC, a cross-check-like organization led by the Pew Charitable Trusts, would not be subject to open records laws. That's right, would not be subject to open records laws. He would be able to share information like social security numbers, date of birth, other personally identifying information, and it would not be subject to open records laws. This bill is going to the Senate floor for a vote on Wednesday. So that's all I have for you all this week, but I'll be doing regular video updates again now that I'm feeling much better. Please post any comments or questions below. I'd love to answer them or find someone that can if I don't know the answer. Bye, talk to you all soon.